important it is for us to ensure that we don't succumb to anger, or the fact that anger does not get the best out of us, because that exactly is what it does. Now, what could be causing anger? When we talk about causes, the first one that we often think of is we are not happy at the way we are being treated, whether it is injustice or whether we are not being perhaps heard or appreciated. So that is something which comes to our mind when we talk about as one of the causes. And another one is the memories of traumatic incidents. Certain traumatic incidents causes us to feel angry. Just write this one question on a paper in front of you. That is, when is anger a problem? Okay, this is a very small activity here. When is anger a problem? It's a very personal activity. In other words, you will not be discussing it with any of the other participants or with me. It's a very personal activity. So, and you have to write the answers to these questions from the perspective on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is not at all, and 1 is absolutely true. Does anger become so much that it negatively affects others? Now, this requires you to give your very, very sincere feedback. So it will actually give you an idea on how strong a role anger plays in your life. The second question is, it hinders performance at home or work. Anger hinders performance at home or work. Number 3, anger negatively affects health or well-being. Anger negatively affects health or well-being. And the last one, my anger is too intense. Once again, it's up to you to decide how it is. My anger is too intense. 3 more very, very common ways of expressing our anger would be, of course, expression, where people are willing to discuss, or people tend to start shouting. Now, that's also a form of expression. Suppression. Now, suppression is something which, as the word implies, isn't very healthy. And I can share it from my own experience. There was a time when I used to suppress my anger, believing it is perhaps rather negative to communicate the anger or that feeling of anger. When, of course, after a period of time, I realized that is not the case. So that then, as I said, first is expression, then is suppression, all right? And then we come to calming down. Meditate on the reason and address it. Sometimes what causes us to be angry may not be known immediately. It could have a past history, which could be the reason why we are behaving the way we do. For example, if we have any kind of abuse experienced during our younger days, or any extremely disharmonious home environment where you would see probably perhaps parents fighting or quarreling, I think that also can bring about a lot of inbuilt unresolved anger. How can we transform anger into a much more healthier feeling? How do we get ourselves to probably transform this extremely concerning or deeply affecting emotion into something positive? Yes, it is definitely positive. Our anger can be looked at as a way that we are able to evolve ourselves into a person who is more confident and more assertive. Now, how do we do that? Every time we are in a situation where we know we are getting provoked, sit back and think for a moment, what is our goal and purpose in that situation? Why is it important to let go of anger? I think the first reason that comes to our mind is anger weakens our immune system. And it's a fact. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the way how we respond to anger can give us a lot of strain and a lot of stress. Because the more we are prone to focusing on the healthier way of expressing ourselves, the better it is for our state of mind and, of course, our body. Because apart from creating havoc with the fact that our heart and the BP all could fluctuate in terms of the speed, apart from that, it is bringing in a lot of anger, brings in a lot of anxiety, and lots of other negative emotions which could just make you feel unhappy. And the more unhappy our mind is, our body would sympathize and would also respond to that negativity. And that is how it can definitely weaken our immune system. A famous Chinese philosopher had once said, when anger rises, think of the consequences. And I think that's so true, because sometimes in moments of anger, we say a lot of things that we do not mean. And we say and we may behave in a way that we are not able to sometimes even get the relationship back to the state that it was.
Like, I have heard some views that anger can be something that motivates us, or we could take the things that made us angry,
Yes,
and make them something that would drive us.
correct.
Do you think that's always possible, or?
In fact, I think I have read it myself, I admit, that anger to an extent can be something of a motivational factor for us to achieving things what we would like to achieve in life. I think that is, according to me, I think that's only to a very small extent, because the level of motivation anger, according to me, can provide is not something which is lifelong. And besides, if that anger is going to be carried as a motivational factor for an entire life, I think it can probably create a lot more negativity than positive feelings in the person.
Do you mind if you can just give a quick revision on the 6 healthy ways you had mentioned?
Sure.
6 healthy ways to express anger.
Absolutely. The first one is address the issue before it gets out of control. The first one. All right. And the second one is to go for a leisurely walk. The third one is the breathing technique.
Yes.
All right. The fourth one is the writing therapy. The fifth one is to meditate on it and address it with greater clarity. Now, addressing it with greater clarity here is very important, because sometimes all of us tend to meditate on it and then it's okay, leave it be. Sometimes that happens. That would not be probably ideal. Ideal would be to meditate on it so that you're able to address it with greater clarity. When we find that there is a situation where there may have been a person or persons responsible in our life for anger, it's extremely important that we are able to overcome the anger we have. Now, you may ask how, and it depends a lot from situation to situation, I know, because carrying anger throughout life will not only affect our health, it also affects those who live with us or those whom we interact with. So it's very, very important that we either come to terms with that person, and if that is not possible, we learn to forgive and probably, as much as possible, refrain from interaction with that person, reduce at least the interaction as much as possible. Because forgiveness is not for the person concerned or who who was a reason for your anger, but forgiveness is for your own emotional and physical health. Forgiveness is not because you are tolerating that person's behavior. No, you're doing it for yourself. So carrying anger is extremely negative for us in the long run. So the more we are aware of the consequences, I think the more conscious we would be to overcome